Usually when we breathe, there tends to be a pause between the end of the inhalation and the beginning of the exhalation, and then a pause at the end of the exhalation before we inhale again. The effect of these pauses is that we maintain patterns of thought, patterns of how we hold ourselves, emotionally, physically, and when we keep a constant cycle of movement of the breath, not allowing that gap to take place, that pause, the effect is that the patterns that have built up in us start to crumble and break down. So rebirthing breathwork is a very simple way to dissolve patterns, dissolve conditioning, dissolve tension. It sounds strange that something so simple, just using the breath, could be so fundamentally important that it would enable us to dissolve elements in our experience, in our what we end up even calling our personality, our experience of life. But it really, it's something to be experienced, and then to get a sense of why it is said that it dissolves tension. But I can explain some elements of it also. At the simplest level, it's referred to as conscious connected breathing. The breath is always associated with life force. It's our most accessible form of energy, the breath. And when we breathe consciously, not just being aware that we're breathing, but being aware at a deeper level, being aware that we are taking in life force. If we think of the breath in that way, and if we, you could say, feel the breath in that way, so cultivating you could say a feeling of gratitude, a feeling of awe about just the fact that while breathing, we are relating directly to the life force. We are receiving life, maintaining life as we breathe. It's could be described as being constantly receiving divine grace. You may or may not relate to these terms, these spiritual or religious terms. It doesn't matter. The idea is not to be reaffirming a religious belief, but to be cultivating the feeling that arises when we look at the breath in this way. So this is something we can just experiment with to see what the use of this is. I want to say, rebirthing itself, the way it's usually taught, is simply conscious, connected breathing. These are the elements that I may refer to are not necessarily taught as part of rebirthing. However, the founder of rebirthing, Leonard Orr, he did use an alternative name for rebirthing, which was communion with the Holy Spirit. So even though rebirthing could be described essentially as simply conscious connected breathing, which describes a technique, communion with the Holy Spirit does describe this feeling associated with the breath, a feeling of holiness which takes place as we breathe and which we can cultivate. So it's not just the end result of the practice. At least the way that I share this practice, it's not just the end result that we hope to achieve through the practice, but actually it's the way we practice. We practice it as a communion with the Holy Spirit, which you may prefer other ways of describing it, which transmit the same essence. What I mean by communion with the Holy Spirit, like I said, the feeling of communing with the source of life. So it really doesn't matter whether you have a belief in God. Just practice the exercise of, you could say exercise the feeling of making the breath sacred. Exercise that. Experience it as an exercise, as something that you can cultivate, regardless of what your usual beliefs are. It's something that you can play with, you could say, or investigate for yourself. So I don't want to make this video very long. So that's all I'll say for now, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions in further videos. I want to just say again, breathwork, the rebirthing breathwork, is sometimes described simply as conscious, connected breathing. And some people who work with rebirthing might just say that anything else that is said about it is not rebirthing, because rebirthing can be condensed and explained in that extremely simple way, conscious connected breathing. I would say that that's true to an extent, that it really can be condensed to that level. However, the way in which we are conscious of the breath is really what I'm talking about. The quality of consciousness with which we are conscious of the breath. Okay. Thank you for listening, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions about this, or hear about your experiences with rebirthing and whether this description is in any way helpful, whether it resonates with you, whether it's meaningful. Thank you.